We're just right around the corner from the sweet release of what I like to call the evolution of physics in video games. I think you know exactly what I'm referring to with what I like to call stellar cheeks, stellar TNA. You almost just have to drop and bow down to these cheeks. So obviously this game has been getting a lot of attention for the right reasons, but also the most important part is, of course, the combat here in Stellar Cheeks, and this is actually what had me interested, I think 2 years ago when it was going by the name of Project Eve. It looked like a Devil May Cry or a Bayonetta successor of some kind. And the first thing that's annoying me this morning, there's a lot of people that are just, I think, conflating the types of games that influence Steller Blade. People are saying it's Sekiro, people are saying it's Nier, and I can understand where they're coming from. Obviously, it's a little bit like Sekiro, but not really, other than the very parry-heavy combat, which seems to be the design philosophy for so many games today. And I don't think they're doing the parry system very well, because today the way they design the parry is all around defensive play. You have to actually wait for the enemy to attack. It's hard to attack with tempo the way these games are designed, because the Souls games always kind of facilitated slower, more defensive, reactionary combat rather than action games, which are much more fast-paced, where you put the tempo on the enemy. Now, thankfully, Stellar Blade does have the ability for the player to put tempo on the enemy. This game does have some mechanical complexity to it. You have a lot of combos that you can use with just basic button presses, and you have these special abilities. I believe they're called the whatever these attacks with the L1 button system. There's a lot of people also saying it's like Nier, and this one actually really annoys me, because other than the jiggle physics, okay, which, you know, are obviously, again, this is the evolution of physics in games, but the combat, people really have to stop giving Nier people really need to stop giving Nier all of the credit, because Nier does not have a combat system. Alright, Nier obviously has gameplay, it obviously has some rudimentary hack and slash elements which are holdovers from Bayonetta, but it's the most watered down combat system, one of the most watered down combat systems ever in a mainstream video game. It's kind of like if you took Bayonetta's combat and you put it into a capsule. Alright, take Bayonetta's combat and put it into a pill. Now throw that pill into a river, and whatever is left over from the powder, that would be the Nier combat system. It's like if you took all of the mechanical complexity, if you took the enemy design, enemies that actually put up a fight, resistance against you. What if you took the style system out of the game? What if you took the ranking system out of the game? That would be Nier. Okay, Nier is not a combat-oriented or combat-focused game. It isn't terrible, but it's not a game that you play for the combat. Stellar Blade is, I'm not really sure what exactly they're going for with Stellar Blade. It does have a little bit of some RPG systems, it seems. It isn't a straight-up character action game, which would have been, I think, a much more interesting fit, because we haven't really had, outside of, you know, Devil May Cry and a couple of games that Platinum Games have made over the years, we haven't really had a true character action game outside of Bayonetta, Metal Gear Rising, a couple of other games I haven't played. I think they said Astral Chain is a good game. You haven't really had a great character action game. I know Final Fantasy has been trying to be more hack and slash. I haven't really gotten into those. Those aren't really character action games, though. And nothing is comparing to old school Devil May Cry, a little bit of Ninja Gaiden, Bayonetta. These are the triple crown of the genre. And so, more than just the physics, I am kind of intrigued by the combat system here. There's not the same fluidity of a Bayonetta. It's not as graceful as Bayonetta. Of course, no other game really is. And a game like Steller Blade, I think, makes you appreciate more how great something like Bayonetta is. Just the depth of combat, the breadth of combat. and how smooth it is. There's a little bit of, I don't want to say the word clunky necessarily, but one of the things I don't like is, yes, you can put a little bit of tempo on the enemy, but you can't really stagger them into a combo that can actually... There are instances of even the trash mobs being able to hit through your combo, which I don't really like. In an action game, you should be able to style on the enemy to a degree, but this is kind of more of the Souls. This is kind of the Souls influence, where they really want you to get the timing on the parry or get the perfect dodge. Not a bad system, not a bad idea. Starting to get the hang of that. And I do think the timing on the dodges, they try to make them very cinematic instead of being more responsive. Instead of being more responsive, they're making them very flashy, like some big event where if you hit this, you're going to get a huge riposte or something. So they have a couple of different dodges where you have to really pay attention to the indicator here. And it looks like there's going to be a very parry-heavy approach where the boss is going to spam not just 1, 2, 3, 4, and you've got to get all of the perfect parries. And if you get the perfect parry, I'm not quite sure how it works, but there are some sequences, if you get the perfect parry, you can get an immediate, like, you can put a pause on their attack and give a counter attack, which is really nice. I hope that there's more to the skill tree than what they have. I haven't tried out all of the combos, but there are some interesting combos. I like the ones where you can kind of teleport yourself across the map. Again, you look at a game like Devil May Cry, it's so amazing that this game was made 20 years ago, because you have something like Trickster where all of the bases are covered in a game like Devil May Cry. You can zip across the map from point to point wherever the enemies are. And in this game, sometimes the counterattack doesn't even teleport you to the boss, so sometimes you can actually miss the counter if the camera messes up. There's too much distance and you can't close the gap. So I did not experience any aerial combat. I don't know if there's much aerial combat in this game. Maybe that's something that you unlock as you progress, so that's another drawback, I think. And in terms of like the personality, there doesn't seem to be much personality in the characters or the story, so this game looks very nice. I don't think this is going to be the successor to Nier. I don't think you're going to get an amazing story, but it doesn't have to be as long as the core fundamentals are good. This looks like a good game. I don't think it's going to be an amazing game like people are saying. I think people just need to go back and play games like Bayonetta, games like Devil May Cry, to see what the peak of the genre really is. The same with God of War. People that played God of War, they have no idea, most of them, what even the old God of War games were. I've been talking about this in several videos that I've made. It doesn't get better than those old school action games, and I think they're trying to do something with Steller Blade. I like that it's not another pure Souls-like, but it's also not a pure character action game, so it leads me to think the developers aren't quite sure what they want to do with this game. It reminds me a little bit of also, like, I don't want to say Vanquish, it's completely different than Vanquish, but the level design, I guess it's more geared towards like a Nier or a Souls game with a little bit of open-ended exploration. You go to certain points, you collect certain items that will help you on your quest. There are some RPG-esque upgrade systems, but I kind of feel like it's also like that old school linear design of move from checkpoint to checkpoint. You're going to have a boss battle, you're going to have a big enemy encounter. It's kind of like a hybrid of those two, but it isn't quite like the Devil May Cry or Bayonetta where you get locked into a room and you have to fend off that room. It is kind of a mixed bag. I'm more positive than negative, but I do think that it's an interesting experiment that they've got going on, but it's not looking like it's going to replace Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, but it is a very appealing game for the obvious reasons, but I think the gameplay is good enough that this should be on everyone's radar that likes these types of games, and everyone should like these types of games, but it isn't really Game of the Year looking contender. I don't know if it would be a $70 day one game, but for some people it would be. There's just so many games out, and they're all starting to be $70 that you really have to not just think about time, not just think about money, but think about time as well. But I am interested. I think I might end up getting Steller Blade when it drops. And it is a game I've been looking at for a while. And I'm mostly pleased with the preview. Maybe the main game will be even better, so Stellar Cheeks, I'm on board.